My name is Brian Smith. I'm responsible for TechOps at Tableau Software. That includes the IT team, as well as enterprise applications teams. So we support the business running on a day-to-day basis. Included in that is our analytics team and our data team. And what we're doing internally, like a lot of you, are evaluating how are we going to run analytics as we're moving things to the cloud. To get started, turn it on. I've done that before. I don't turn the clicker on. For those of you who don't know, that Tableau actually is based in Seattle. And we're located right here down by Gasworks Park with a great view of the city. And one thing you also probably didn't know is that in Seattle, we've been doing cloud since before it was cool. And it turns out that there are a lot of other companies in our area. It seems that our region is ripe for cloud technology. So we've got a lot of the partners that we have here building cloud infrastructure in Seattle. And I found out just yesterday that besides patenting the delivery of packages from underwater, this is now the patent-pending cloud data center that we're hosting a lot of our infrastructure in. I just thought that that's the next one to go. So today I want to talk about some of the trends in cloud. Let me just get a hand for those of you that are IT-centric, so consider yourself more in IT, which is okay, awesome. So I'll cover a little bit from an IT perspective as well as on the business side, kind of building your strategy, some of the things that we're looking at as we're building our cloud strategy within our own company. And then I'm going to go through what we have today, what we're thinking about, how we're planning on moving even more and more to the cloud, and give you examples of the data we use to run our business. So I personally use Tableau about 2 hours a day running the business, whether it's finance data, it's metrics based on our project management tools, ServiceNow, ticketing, everything. So we have some great use case examples that are already pretty much cloud-to-cloud solutions that we're running at Tableau. So the trends in 2017, I think this trend has been up there for the last 5 years, right? IT is always shifting our skill sets. But even today, we have cloud engineer positions open, and we're really retooling our team and focusing on making sure that they know how to use cloud solutions everywhere from fundamental deployment of systems to securing that environment. So we're spending a lot of time in that space. Organizations, we're embracing hybrid environments, right? So we're a cloud-first company for the most part when it comes to our business tools. So we've been running that way for quite a few years. But in a hybrid environment, we're moving more data to the cloud, or cloud data is actually being created in the cloud. And we have to work in both ways, right? And so Tableau lets us do that. And we can go into the details. We're partnering more with the business now. I mean, we know about Shadow IT. It's been out there for a long time. But as these cloud tools are out there and we're integrating with SSO, we actually have an engagement with the business that seems that there's less Shadow IT. And we're really working with them and partnering and making sure that they get what they need. And governance is a lot easier, right? Managing licenses on desktops, it can be challenging. And also locking down machines and making sure people you can't do certain things on their machines. But with a lot of cloud technologies, you point them to a URL and then you build all that centrally in that application. So it's a lot easier to manage and manage those licenses. And internally, I mean, we do use a lot of tools internally, so you're up and running a lot faster, right? Building out infrastructure to support an ERP in a data center, redundancy, all that takes a lot to do. But of course, with cloud solutions, we're getting over that pretty quickly. Regional data issues, right? So as companies go global, there are new rules coming out, GDPR, about where data resides and residency. So the ability to just, with your cloud providers, put data in region, and you're not having to go build out that infrastructure in order to support that. And then IoT, we don't really use a lot of IoT at Tableau, but the ability now to be pumping a lot of that data into a cloud solution and then running analytics there, right? You're not having to move that data around, and you can use the tools that you use on a daily basis in the cloud to manage that. So the shifts in the environment, this is kind of the traditional old environment, right? You've got a few systems, ERP, CRM, a bunch of different data. You pump it into a data warehouse, and then everybody gets access to cubes or certain data warehouses. Kind of today's pipeline, you're thinking more about how to get to data in different places. During the keynote, it was brought up that there is no one single source of data anymore. Now, there could be a data source that actually is your truth, the data that you're looking for. But in general, when you're going and looking at across all the different platforms that you have, it's going to be more complex, and you are going to have data in different places. When you're thinking about data landing zones, right? So and it depends on the solution you're using. If you're pushing data into AWS, probably S3, or in Google, you're putting in some of their infrastructure. So you're putting the data where you need it. It's not just one central location anymore, and it's all about efficiency and cost. And then in IT, we've kind of been the protector of data in the past, but now we're really mentors. In Tableau, we have a program called Tableau Doctor, or Alpo Doctor. It's our internal code name for our database. But Alpo Doctor, we actually sit down every week for 3 hours and have folks in the company volunteer their time. And anyone in the company can schedule time just like we do Tableau Doctor here. So we're actually enabling our business to use our data in a way that's a lot more effective. So you probably heard about data gravity, and this has a lot to do with where the data resides. I mean, that's the hardest thing to move is the data. So where that resides is where your applications are going and where really our analytics are going, because you don't want to have to bring that on-prem as our data gets bigger and bigger. So a trend that we're seeing, we have a little bit of insight into this. We run Tableau Online, and it's now 70% of the users are connecting to cloud database solutions. That's up, I think, about 25% over the last year. So we're really seeing a lot of engagement with people making connections to Redshift and Azure and BigQuery, a lot of different tools directly, as opposed to either pushing SQL data up or pushing Excel files up into the cloud. So we're really, you're seeing people are moving data, but a lot of data is really being sourced now and not even touching our on-premise infrastructure, which is a good thing. So some of the benefits that we see, so these are kind of common and they're not really surprising, but in context of how we're running our environment, just scalability. So we run Tableau, if you use maps in Tableau, those maps are served from AWS. If you're using Tableau Online or Tableau Public, those are also different data centers. Now, when I used to work at Expedia, and when MSN would put an ad on the homepage of MSN that said, "Flights to Vegas, $25." You can imagine every single person in the world's hitting that button. And there was just no way you could scale to support that. So for us, let's say someone puts a viz on The Guardian or some publication, and it has a map. So that's both our online system and our map systems, and we get a huge hit and spike in the requirements for that. Our maps team has built the infrastructure to scale dynamically, so we can spin up machines and actually support that big burst of capacity necessary to support our business. Reliability, the days of having to build multiple data centers just to store a database somewhere, right? That's pretty painful and expensive. And if you build out right in the cloud, availability zones and regions, you're really able to up your reliability of the infrastructure. That's what our team is spending a lot of time doing. Being able to respond quickly, we're engaged with all the different departments now. Always have been, but even more so now with sales readiness, our training teams and our marketing teams, and the ability for us to move really quickly and spin things up and help them. The innovation side, so just the recent advent of a lot of the ML and AI solutions that are out there. There's no way that every single one of our companies is going to invest in that on our own. On our premises. So having your data out there, access to these tools, running quick POCs, just the ability to innovate quickly. It's almost like, yes, when you're innovating, it's you want to fail fast. The problem when you're doing it on-prem is it takes a long time to build it up to start, right? Here you can get spun up and then break them down. Security, I almost didn't put this up here, right? In the news, it's like every day someone got breached. But it really doesn't have to do necessarily with a lot of these cloud providers. It's how people implement. But you've got these companies that have hundreds of people that are working on security, that are building data centers that are far more secure than we could probably build ourselves, and investing in making sure that they're tracking all the bad actors out there. That. And cost optimization. So a lot of us are moving to more operational expense than capital. But as we do that, there's a lot of opportunity for people to overspend and really track that. So with Tableau, a lot of the tools that we're using, we're tracking daily the use of those tools. So we'll pull data down. I'll show you an example of a viz in a while, where we look at it daily and we can see if there are outliers. If someone just spun up 100 machines, like we spin up 100 or 300 machines a day just at conference, to support some of the server training. So we know we're going to get some spikes for some of these machines, but we're able to track that and then optimize and then go after perhaps looking at reserved instances or other ways to maximize our spend. So in your strategy, that's the 5 R's. You may have seen this before. It goes everything from basically lift and shift all the way to rip and replace, right? So and odds are across your enterprises, you're going to have a mix of all of these, right? So some applications, it's just easier to put it to maybe legacy and not going away soon. You just move it out there just to get it off your hardware. In our case, I would say that we're running Tableau Online, and it's Tableau Server, and we're running it online, AWS and other data centers now. And that was probably a re-architect. So we didn't necessarily change a lot in the application, but how it runs and how we architect the infrastructure underneath, we did make changes there. So as you're looking through your portfolio of applications, consider what's going to be the most efficient use of your time in how you move. Now, when it comes to all the different platforms, you probably will use 2 or 3 of these, if not more. Right? We're using at least probably 6 of these different solutions. And by cloud too, some of these, a few of these are on-prem, like VMware and OpenStack. We may be running local or in some of our data centers. But there isn't going to be one solution, most likely, that you're running everything on. In our case, our marketing team uses a lot of Google Analytics and a lot of data there, so we're pushing data into BigQuery in that case. And we do run a lot of stuff on AWS. So when you're picking your platform, just think about the best fit for what you're trying to do, not necessarily just trying to put everything in one place. Integration, this is one where you probably will land on 1 or 2. We ended up going with Talend for the majority of our integrations. All of these are great solutions. It just depends on what you're trying to do. But again, this is one we'll really focus a lot of time on this one, because if you're moving data from, we've got probably 250 cloud applications or services that we're managing across our entire enterprise. If you're trying to get data from out of that, make sure that you're picking a tool that's going to be able to support that. Data strategy here, again, you're not going to use just one. We're probably using like 4 or 5, 4 on here. And again, best fit, there's so many technologies out there now. And when we were running a POC between Redshift and BigQuery, all of a sudden Spectrum came out, right? So every day there's a new shiny object. I think Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, they're all kind of in the mix for how we're going to progress our BI solution as we move more and more to the cloud. But beware of shiny objects, because I just know like in the next month there's going to be something that is going to be the next great thing. The tools, there are just so many tools out there. I wasn't going to even try to name them or grab them all. But you've got tools everywhere from procuring and building out your infrastructure to reporting on the metrics and spend, right? So in between this entire ecosystem, and they're fairly immature. I mean, they're young, especially on the billing side, but they're really quite helpful to be able to go in and know where you're spending your money. Like, I'll show you a viz where you can see where you're spending it, and then you use these tools to actually optimize your spend and figure out how you're going to use your investment in those cloud solutions. And then to do all this, we have a lot of partners here. I know quite a few on this list are here, and we work with quite a few of them ourselves. Within our team, we're just like you. We're running the business, and that's our day job. And so we actually solicit help from our own partners to build that out. And they'll be able to help you really kind of figure out across all of these different categories what the best solution is in your environment. So let's get a little bit more detail. That was kind of the high level. So this is a picture of what we're running today. There's a mix of, more and more is shifting towards some of these cloud solutions. But our data sources you see here on the lower left, most of these are cloud business tools in the cloud. A couple on-premise. But today, for the most part, we're pushing a lot of that into a SQL Server. We're using standard SQL Server application and pushing that data out into databases in region, so it's closer We want to get data closer to the people because that's the latency is grabbing data across the ocean. It's where you run into performance issues. And then we have Tableau servers deployed in region as well, connecting to those databases. So you've got all of our data sources, and you've got the data connections. So we connect. We probably do a little bit more than others for the purpose of testing this out. So internally, Alpo is, as I said, is the name of our database and our Tableau deployment. It's it's a double word score. It's our opportunities, leads, prospects, or accounts, leads, prospects, and opportunities. And it's also dog food, which we use constantly. And so we're trying to really connect to every single source out there, right, and test it, so that when we're running betas, we can find issues with that before it gets shipped. But the funny thing is, when I put this together, or I've been using this for a while, that one of those first few slides where I said the shift in the data warehouse, if you just take this and turn it on its side, it looks a lot like the old one, right? So we're running it in kind of a traditional way, and now we're trying to figure out how do we run it in the new way. So some of those challenges, just scale. As we're growing, going to have, buying more storage in region and getting it delivered and getting it set up just to keep up with the growth of the company. Right? That's pretty challenging. Again, the HA and building that in and having redundant data centers. Just performance itself, managing. When you're talking about managing indexes and SQL Server and different technologies, there are some that you can use that you don't even have to think about it because it's all optimized within those solutions. Maintenance is extremely important. It's one of the major issues with some of the security breaches. So you have to stay on top of maintenance, but it's time consuming. And then, moving to the cloud, there are opportunities to really reduce the amount of time and effort in terms of maintaining your environment. And time to insight. Because we're pumping everything into SQL, that means we have to have this process where people are requesting data. We have to go build the connectors and get them all set up. And so what we're building towards is a solution that gives people access to data faster in its raw form. They can iterate on it and then actually start come back to us with what they really need as opposed to just trial and error during that process. So here's what we're thinking. We're still in POC where we haven't, this isn't ironed out. But the ingest component, right? So we've got all of these cloud solutions that we're connecting to and on-prem, including our own data. And we have the ELT, right? So the ETL is a term that we've probably all familiar with and have been using these tools to move data around in the past. But really it's, even if you think about it, you're probably moving data somewhere, and then you're actually running queries there and then presenting that data. So it's really an extract, load, and then you transform that data. So this is the one where you're probably going to pick one vendor. So we have chosen Talon to be our vendor, and then you're moving that data in its raw format into some file location, right? So it could be in AWS in the S3 bucket. It could be in Google. And getting that data there in the right format is really not that complicated. And we have a great data architect on our team who's designing a metadata-driven ETL or ELT process, right? So using Talon, using some technologies that the team is developing, you can really just plug and play the source, the destination, and then the tool will go ahead and build the jobs and run that on Talon and deploy that into either the S3 bucket or in Google. And then the other part of it is then you are really loading and transforming. So we're looking at all these different technologies, whether it's Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, and again, we aren't going to just use one. I'm pretty darn sure for a fact that we'll be running BigQuery for a lot of our marketing data. We'll be using either Snowflake or Redshift, and even Athena. We're using that now because you can query S3 directly with Athena. So it's going to be a combination of all these things. So it starts to look complicated. Here, you may just be moving data straight out of a solution into Azure or a cloud database, or you're pumping data into something like Splunk, and that Splunk is an aggregator for a lot of the data that we're getting out of our systems. And you can even have systems that are going out all the way to those systems and pulling data in, right? So Alteryx may be going out there, or with Tableau doing extracts against ServiceNow or Salesforce, and with Maestro, that will also be a solution. So now it looks a little complicated even when you're in the IT side of the house. But with Tableau and our analytics platform, the ability to create data sources and connect to all these different data points, it makes it a lot more palatable for your team. So your end user, all they're going to see is a data source or a data connection in Tableau, and I'm going to go into more detail on that, and connect to this data. So you're really procuring the data and creating that secure, governed environment, and they can connect to this either through online, on-premise, or even cloud-hosted solutions with our product. And then if you think about it, some of the data scientists, you may give them access all the way back to the raw data, right? So they may be trying to run some machine language against marketing data or sales data. So you can even get them all the way back through to the file system. So at the end of the day, we're trying to really get the data into the storage area as quickly as we can so people can start playing with the data, and then we formalize that and then put it on our platform. Yeah?
Just from what you were saying with Tableau, for your internal applications, are you planning on hosting Tableau like on Amazon or Azure, and like just a straight Tableau installs on VMs like a normal, like you were doing internally, or you plan on using Tableau online, or?
Sure, that's a great question. So we try to do as much as we can in terms of how our customers consume our products. Right now, we have a big push to get a lot of it to use online. If we're not using it to run our business, then we can't expect others to do that as well. So we already use Tableau Online. I'll actually show you a couple of vizzes that are referencing Tableau Online. But we're pushing more and more to get our business running purely online. But a lot of that does have to do with where the data is, how we're going to get to it, and how much time we have to do that, because we're also running the business, right? Just like you. But I will talk about that. So let's talk about the hybrid, because this is where we're at. We have on-premise, we're not running, so we are running actually in the public cloud. Some of our Alpo, our developer database or servers are running in AWS on Linux now with Hyper, and we use online. And the great thing about our platform is easy to connect to cloud data from any of those solutions. And we have ways of connecting to your on-premise data. So if you're using Tableau Online, we have Tableau Bridge, which lets you now connect back to your on-premise databases. So you don't actually have to move it if you don't want to move it. And there are ways in public clouds to VPN back into your own locations. So you can choose to run those live, or with Hyper, pull those in as extracts and then run that online, or run that within your own servers. So we really give you a lot of different options and flexibility. And for your own company, you're going to want to figure out what's the right solution, and that's one of the things that my team loves to do is help our customers figure that out. So we do a lot of work with customers and talk about how we've deployed things and creating some of those best practices. So the one thing when I talk to anybody about Tableau in the IT space is you have to know data sources. They are probably the best feature in Tableau from my perspective in terms of governance, managing access to information. If you remember getting a MySQL connection, you get an IP, a port number, a username, and a password, right? With a data connection, you set that up, and then anyone who has access just clicks on the data source, and they can start building a viz right away. So it gives you that single version of truth as well, so if it can save you time. If you have someone come and say, hey, this data is wrong, I can't get the right answer, or you have the wrong answer, but the first thing we'll do is say, well, have you used the data source, or did you go to the raw data and do it yourself? And if they hadn't used the data source, then we can say, do it again, use the data source. If your answer is different, let's talk, right? So we can reduce some of the churn that we have in a lot of our environments. So, and how do you get started? This is the sales opportunity data source, and this was the very first data source that we built. And we didn't, the business didn't ask us for it. What we did was we ran a trace on our SQL database and looked at what tables and fields were being hit the most. And then we built the data source, went to the sales and said, hey, this looks like what you're asking for. does this solve most of your problems? And it's iterative. We've added to it over time. But now, I mean, could you imagine even ourselves in a more technical role, perhaps, trying to recreate this every single time that you wanted to ask a question, right? I'll mess that up every once in a while, let alone every salesperson in your company trying to do this, right? So it's really helpful to make things easier. And now, we just, with 10.4, we have certifications on data sources. So my analytics team can go and say, this is a blessed data source, go ahead and use it, and you know you're using the right data. The other thing now is if you have a lot of data sources that are blessed and people are going out there and dragging and dropping data from native tables, they will now recommend some of those data sources. So we're helping direct people in a smart way. And just to give you some proof, we're not bluffing you. Our sales opportunity has 672. This was actually taken in May. 672 workbooks that are connected to just that one data source. So that's 672 workbooks that are using the right data. The other piece that I didn't mention, this is running on SQL Server, and if you know the query, you know you can optimize it, right? So we know what this one query looks like, so you can optimize indexing for that query. So it's going to be the fastest thing for everyone to use in the company. Another key piece is embedding. I had to blur out the names because those are the vendors and when our contracts come up, so I didn't want to quite give you all that. But we embed Tableau in a lot of the tools that we use. This is ServiceNow, and we manage our contracts in ServiceNow. And everything inside this frame here is as a Tableau viz that we've embedded. And so this shows the 30, 60, 90 plus day out contract expirations. And it's a really quick way to see how much work you have coming up with recontracting. If you can imagine, the native view is basically just a list, right, of contracts that you have. And you could sort it by date. So this is a great way that we embed and use Tableau in running our own business. So let's get into some real use cases. I'm going to flip over and go into different screen mode so I can manage it. Okay. So IT budget. This is one of my favorites. I get this email. Of course, it's fake data noted in the bottom. I get this email to me every week. It gives me a summary of all the CapEx, OpEx, what we spent, where we're spending it. You can see by quarter. So this is in Q2 where we were against our Q2 spend. But it's a really quick snapshot, and this is coming from NetSuite, which is our financial system, and just a great way to look at data and how we're running our business. This next one, cloud spend. Again, made up data, but what we're doing is we're pulling data from AWS billing. So in this case, for AWS or Google or Azure, you could recreate this viz. But we're taking data from billing in AWS and putting that into an S3 bucket. And now that we have an Athena connector with Tableau, we can just query that Athena or the data through Athena from Tableau into the S3 bucket. So every day we just refresh this data extract, and it shows me exactly what I spent to date, and I can get down to line level. I get down to one instance and what we spent that day. So if anyone asks, well, how much does it cost to run Tableau online? I can tell you exactly what it cost to run yesterday, right, in AWS. So just that granularity is a great use case for our team. So the book of business. Actually, I didn't switch over. Hang on. We're often asked, well, or actually, I ask my team a lot. How much are we spending on a certain vendor? And hopefully no, it doesn't want to flip. And so I want to be able to go in and let's duplicate. Of course, this worked when I was doing it earlier, right? There we go. So I'm asked, or I'll ask, how much are we spending on a particular vendor? Of course, this data is also made up, but I can come in here and look at Wayne Enterprise, and then I'll get the spend reconnecting after. Oh, see, I'm using Tableau Online with our SSO sign-in. All right, so I can come in and go to this viz, and I can see what we spent by year. I can see the actual cadence of purchases, so the little line below is the bubbles are the size of the purchase. Who the supplier is, what accounts I bought. So this could have been from Wayne Enterprise could be a VAR that I'm buying different types of data or different types of things. So it's really cool, quick way for us to look at how we're actually spending our money. Purchase orders. This is one where if you've got a purchase system, it's pretty hard to track what the status is of your order, right? And in this case, this is a report that we have that shows by team or by project code what the and who. So these are real people, but the data's been altered a bit. But I can come and I can see how late or what state a particular order's in. So if I'm asked, hey, where are those 30 servers, or where's my updated contract for Salesforce, we can go into this viz and just really quickly identify where those are and figure out ways to run our business more efficiently. Cost per employee. This one is, we're often asked, well, what does it cost to run or to support sales or to support marketing? So we have all of our different tools, and Lindbergh, who kind of is our business manager on our team, can then associate those tools, in perhaps a ratio to different departments. So in this case, it's probably a little hard to see, but so you can look at cost per customer solutions, cost per salesperson, cost per marketer, cost per developer, right? And while again these are not necessarily real, it's proportionate in that like when marketing team may be a couple hundred people, but they're spending a lot of money on like Eloqua and a lot of tools that are big and expensive, and we run our business on them. So the cost per marketer may actually be slightly high or higher than other areas. But this is a great way to say, well, if we're onboarding people, what's it going to cost us? And then we can get into what makes up that purchase, right? So with a developer, it could be 2 workstations, 2 monitors, Visual Studio, like all these different things that make up the cost of running our systems. We use ServiceNow quite a bit, and every time I go out to our server, I see new cool vizzes that are based on ServiceNow. This is kind of an overview that it's a running total for the month, so this was taken a few days ago. But it gives you, here we see what teams have, are assigned what tickets on this side, open versus closed, what status are, if they're high, low, and then open by day, so you can kind of see the size of the bubble or how many in that category. So we've got moderate and low have kind of the largest number of actual items. And so from this, it's being able to kind of balance and understand where the tickets are coming and what teams are being impacted, and how busy we are. There's another view of ServiceNow data. So this is one that we use in the IT meeting, management meeting. So this takes every one of our different, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll just call them the groups of the teams. And it shows you how many, everything, so there's a red dot line on each one of these. Anything past that red dot line hasn't been touched in 2 weeks, right? Which means it's stale. So if you've got stale data or stale tickets out there, we want to make sure that we're closing those down. And so we'll go through this and then make sure that we go follow up on those. So it's just a good way to keep, well, hopefully they've already gone through and checked them before we have our meeting. But it's a good way to see tickets across your entire team and where you are. This is just another view. In this case, it's total tickets for the year. As you hover over, you can see breakdowns by region, by office. Right? It's good to know what offices perhaps you're having an issue in a particular region. The story behind this one is kind of one of the coolest. So we use Global Protect as a VPN, Palo Alto's Global Protect for our VPN. And it's certificate-based, so you don't have to carry a fob around and to log into the corporate network. So if I go into a Starbucks, I open up my laptop, or even here, type in my password, I've got my certificate and a password. I have 2 forms of authentication, and I get on our corporate network. So what this does is we're able to take the log data from our VPN solution and put that, this is actually coming out of BigQuery. We can put the data in BigQuery and actually see where I have been. So when I click on that, it's going to filter down and show the places where I use my laptop or open my laptop and connect it to the network when I wasn't at work. Right? So I went out to Philadelphia to visit a customer, probably down to San Jose in our office, and was working in the hotel, and then when you're at home or remote, so a lot of stuff in Washington. So that's one thing. So you can see where you're connecting, which is great. But literally within 15 minutes of building this visualization, the team noticed something. We often say that creating a beautiful viz is just the beginning, because then you start asking the questions. So someone asked, well, over here we've got gateways. So in order to connect to the internet, you need to connect to one of our gateways and then connect out. So we've got 3, one in APAC, one in EMEA, and in North America. Well, there's a whole lot of dark blue over Seattle. Right, so if you hover over here, you can see, oops, there. They're from Seattle, and they use the APAC gateway. So if you understand networking, going all the way to APAC to get to the internet, probably not a good thing, right? So the team, we looked into it a little bit more, and it turns out that the global server load balancing solution that Palo Alto is using to provide this service for their entire customer base was not working correctly. And so our team engaged with them. They were able to go in, identify it, fix the problem. And so not only did it improve service for our team, but we were able to help our partners, which was it's kind of a cool find that, it's a great use case in IT, right? The way that we actually use our products to run our business. Anybody use WebEx or a solution like that? So we spend a lot of money on WebEx, and there are 3 ways that you can connect to it, right? You can connect, or audio. You can connect over the internet, you can connect by calling a number, or you can have them call you back. Well, it turns out that on average, across different companies, I'm sure it's a little different, but it costs you 3 times the amount to have it call you, to have WebEx call you. So if your folks are used to just hitting the call me back button, it's going to cost us 3 times the amount if you just call yourself, let alone use your internet connection. So what we do is we take the WebEx data, and this is down to the individual. So this is me. This is a few months ago. But it shows what meeting rooms I was in, so what meetings they were, how I called in. So I had one call back domestic, so I did use that feature. It may have been in my phone or in my car. And so we can really analyze how people are using the tool, and then we actually send emails out to people if they're using too much of the call me back. And just say, did you know? It's more of an education. It's not a forced thing. We've talked about whether we turn it off for everyone, but I think it's a good feature for a lot of people. So this is a bit of an eye chart, but it's just too cool to not really talk about. So we use, on-premise, we use OpenStack. So this is from the metadata of our OpenStack environment. So each one of these columns is a physical machine, and then each little rectangle is a node, or like a virtual machine. So right here, you're looking at about 2,800 virtual machines and where they're distributed. And not only that, you can see over time how many machines we've had active in that cluster, what teams have the most consumption within that stack. And then you can even see those machines that have the highest usage, like highest memory consumption and the highest CPU volume. So in this one view, you really get a great picture of that environment. And I have a slightly less busy version of that that we can look at. So in this case here, I grouped a few people and took a few things out. But in this case here, so you can see over here, I've got this one machine that's running hot, right? So red means it's using a lot of memory, and you've got a lot of CPUs on it. You can select it. You can see who it is, what machine that is. I can see that it was Chris that their machine is using, and I can go to Chris and say, hey, I need to move you or distribute your work. Perhaps I know that they work in the stress testing team. Right, so we can really go in and optimize kind of the use of our resources using that technology. Service availability is something that we do as well. So we're reliant on our vendors for the services that we use to run our business. So in some cases, we're running little tests against those platforms. In this case, this one test we're running a login to that system, and then we're also navigating to an account, let's say. And we're running it from APAC, EMEA, and the US. And we do that because we know where this provider's data center is, and we can figure out if we get a call in IT and it says, hey, this product is slow, what's going on? We can refer to this and see, well, is it systemic? Like, are we seeing this across even our tests, and we know that there's something for that particular region? If not, then we can go in and see if it's just a local issue or if it's the application itself. And in this case, we actually made a change. You can see that it's pretty cool. So our logins from APAC we knew would always be the slowest. So that's the red up on the top. And login is fast on the actual application that we're connected to. It's really pretty quick to log in. But we made a change on the 28th of, I don't remember what month it is. And that change didn't impact login too much, but you can see on navigation, it really made it almost on par with all the other regions because all the workload at that point is really in the application when you're navigating through accounts. So we've made the experience, at least for the most part, equivalent in APAC based on some of the changes that we put in place in order to maximize the use of that. This is the one that I use probably an hour a day. I mean, I'm literally going in and checking projects. There are two versions of this. This is our project management portfolio tool. So we use Workfront for our project management, and that's a cloud solution. We pull that on-prem right now, so this is coming off our internal database. But what we have like programs. So we call them tracks, but they're programs in a portfolio program project kind of structure. And so within each of these tracks, you've got the track driver, so the person on our team that is responsible for making sure that all these projects are running. The area owner, so this could be someone on our team, or it may be a business owner, right? So we make sure we're collaborating with the businesses. And then it shows you, so we've got actually the legends up top. So this decision required, idea, scoping, active, on hold, and complete, right? And so I'm gonna just jump into to this one. We have another version of this, so we've kind of got the top 12, right? The executive top 12 that we're tracking, and we've got milestones for all those projects. So it's a separate viz, but based on the same layout. All right, so let's just go ahead and get this a little bigger. And what's fantastic about this viz, so I can see across all the tracks, the different states of the projects. And if I just pick this security and compliance, I can see these 4 projects. I've got 2 active, 1 on hold, 1 complete. If you're a public company, you're going through some of these SOX issues, or programs as well. I'm competing with everybody else. Okay, so here I can select. Now I select the project, and then above I've got the project description, and below I've got the last status update. Right, so on one page, I can bounce through every single one of the projects in my team and look at the current state. And so we use this, again, I use this pretty much every day for quite a while, and it makes my job a lot easier. So I just want to wrap up, and then we can kind of go into see if there are any questions. Talking about big trends that we're seeing as a company in cloud space. hopefully helped you at least think about when you're starting to build your strategy, those areas that you really need to focus on and where you're going to have one or two solutions versus a whole bunch. Kind of show you how we use our product, and one of the things at the very end here is, call us. We love to have kind of one-on-one or group sessions on Tableau. How we use it, we can deep dive in certain areas if there's one area that you're particularly interested in. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions if you have any. Yeah?
You know, notice in the before slide, SQL Server was the dominant backend, and in the new or what you're planning here, seeing architecture, I didn't see it evolve. Maybe it was part of the Azure buckets on the right side there. But can you share any possible reasons for that? Or?
Well, it's really kind of I actually was a SQL DBA years ago, so I've been using it for a long time. We're just trying new technologies and figuring out what's the most optimal for our business. And running on-premise SQL Server, in some cases, may still. It's going to take a while. This isn't going to happen in 3 months. There may be some data that will reside and remain on-prem. It could be maybe our financial data, maybe something, right? So we're still working it out. We haven't made all the decisions yet. But I do know that we've seen drastically faster performance in the cloud solutions, all three of them, the Snowflake, Redshift, and BigQuery, compared to our on-premise solution. Just drastic. I mean, you're sending these queries out across thousands of nodes as opposed to the one box that you have sitting in your data center.
Is it the tighter relation with Amazon rather than Microsoft that you would be looking for the same solutions in Azure stack?
Well, we're looking at all of them. Again, we're supporting. It's pretty tough, right? Because we can use pretty much any solution out there, and picking the one that's right for you. I could imagine there are a lot of companies that have a pretty deep background in like Microsoft SQL Server, really not even thinking about moving anywhere else other than Azure. Our database, we really don't have a huge data warehouse, right? We're a mid-sized business. We have a lot of data that's generated by our online systems and logging data and all that, but the business data itself, what we've got in Salesforce, what we have in NetSuite, and a few other tools, it's not big data. We actually had a promotion called medium data a few years ago. It's pretty funny. You should check it out. So it's going to be specific to companies and what you're used to using. I would say like our DBAs are, it's fun for them to learn new technologies. So having a breadth of technology is also pretty interesting. Yeah?
Is Tableau Online posted on Amazon Web Services?
Right now it's on, we have 3 different models, actually 3. Amazon Web Services, one of our clusters is there. One of them is in a data center down in Santa Clara, and one is hosted in Dublin by the infrastructure is hosted by a third party. We just run the application. However, we are focusing on migration to AWS in all those areas for scalability purposes and costs as well. It used to be, I don't know how many of you run the calculations. I know Joe and I, for years and years, have been running the cost of running things on-premise versus in the cloud. And for a long time, it took quite a bit to convince us. At some point, there was a tipping point, and it became cheaper. But your applications have to be able to take advantage of that flexibility. So you need to be able to spin things up and spin them down in order to reduce the cost of running it on-prem. But we're at that point where running our online solution is likely will be cheaper than building out 2 data centers with all the network gear and all that and standing it up. So we're moving in that direction. Any other questions? No? Oh.
Another one. So how long have you spent re-architecting those applications? You said you had to spend a fair amount of time re-architecting them so that they work about better.
Well, one of them that actually did a lot of it is sitting in the back, Joe. Re-architecting the way that we run Tableau Server in the cloud. Well, I guess whether it's with the cloud or just in a large cluster environment, right? The price, I don't know, did you spend, because you like 6 months trying to figure out all the different pieces that?
Yeah, we probably spent, when we first launched Tableau Online, we took the server product and SaaSified it, for the lack of a better term. And to do that, it probably took us 6 months to come up with what we wanted to do, and another 3 months to implement it the way we wanted to get tested and run it. And we put that out in beta, was that 13, I think? 2013, for another 4 months. It actually went smoother than we expected. Like, oh, these slides were pretty good.
So yeah, about 6 plus whatever it took to after design. Any other questions? Great. All right, well, thanks for coming. Have a great rest of your conference.